the next President of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again.
When Hulk Hogan passed away, the world expected his legacy to be one of broken finances and shattered family ties. For years, Hogan had told interviewers that his 2009 divorce had destroyed him financially, leaving him nearly penniless. He insisted that Linda, his former wife, had taken almost everything, forcing him to start over from scratch. This story was widely believed because Hogan often spoke about struggling to pay bills and relying on any wrestling event or appearance to keep money coming in. But when investigators looked into his estate, the truth shocked everyone. Hidden beneath layers of shell companies and complicated trusts, Hogan secretly owned 2 giant mansions in Clearwater, Florida. Together, these homes were valued at more than $11 million, a figure that stunned fans who thought their wrestling hero was nearly broke. The properties had been carefully shielded under different names so that even close family members didn't fully realize what he had. What made this discovery even more unbelievable was that Hogan had also been fighting a quiet battle with blood cancer for months, something his wife hinted at in social media posts about his healing. Instead of a simple story about a man who had lost everything, the truth revealed a complicated double life, one where secrets, lies, and hidden wealth collided with his public image. Hulk Hogan's story didn't start in a mansion or in the spotlight of professional wrestling. He was born Terry Gene Bollea on August 11, 1953, in Augusta, Georgia, but his family soon moved to Port Tampa, Florida. His father, Pietro Bollea, was a construction worker, and his mother, Ruth Moody, taught dance. Life was modest, built on hard work and discipline, but young Terry dreamed of more than just a blue-collar future. His passion wasn't wrestling at first, it was music. For nearly a decade, he played bass guitar, even forming a band called Ruckus in 1976. The band gained a local following, and Terry thought he might make it in the music world. He even claimed later that he almost joined legendary bands like Metallica or even the Rolling Stones, though those stories seemed to be exaggerated parts of his growing myth. The truth was, he had talent, but not enough to break into the big leagues of rock music. His family life also carried scars. His older brother Alan tragically died of a drug overdose in 1986, and the family struggles deeply affected him. These personal losses, combined with his father's working-class hardships, lit a fire inside him. Hogan didn't just want success, he needed it, and soon wrestling would give him the chance to chase a different dream. Hogan's entry into professional wrestling was anything but smooth. In 1977, he walked into Hiro Matsuda's training facility in Tampa, expecting to learn the moves that would make him a star. Instead, on his very first day, Matsuda snapped his leg deliberately. It wasn't an accident. Matsuda was known for testing young wrestlers, trying to see who had the toughness to survive. Most men would have quit forever, but 6 weeks later, Hogan limped back into the gym, demanding another chance. That persistence won Matsuda's respect, and Hogan began to build the resilience that would define his career. Around the same time, Hogan was introduced to anabolic steroids. He was already a towering man at 6 feet 7 inches and 300 pounds, but steroids gave him superhuman size and recovery. Locker rooms at the time treated them like candy, and Hogan admitted in court years later that he used them consistently from the late 1970s through the early 1990s. These drugs helped build the enormous muscles that made him larger than life, but they also planted the seeds for controversies that followed him for decades. Even his famous nickname, the Hulk, came from chance. On a Memphis talk show, Hogan stood next to Lou Ferrigno, star of The Incredible Hulk. Viewers noticed Hogan was even bigger, and soon after, he became known as Hulk Hogan. That single moment turned Terry Bollea into a character who seemed unstoppable. By the early 1980s, Hulk Hogan's career began to take off. He joined the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, under Vince McMahon Jr., who saw Hogan not just as a wrestler but as a larger-than-life brand. America in the 1980s was in a wave of patriotic pride, and Hogan's image fit perfectly. With his red and yellow colors, his enormous 24-inch arms, and his theme song Real American, he became a symbol of strength and national spirit. McMahon invested heavily in him, paying him an unheard-of salary and building the entire WWF brand around his popularity. Hogan's win over the Iron Sheik in 1984 for the championship was carefully staged to make him a hero, and WrestleMania in 1985 cemented his status as a household name. Fans believed in Hulkamania, chanting his name, buying merchandise, and filling arenas. From 1984 to 1988, Hogan's merchandise sales alone reached over $1 billion. Yet behind the bright lights, the reality was darker. Wrestlers were pushed beyond human limits, traveling constantly, using drugs to keep performing, and sacrificing their health for the show. Hogan's world was built on illusions, from inflated crowd numbers to scripted victories, but fans didn't care. To them, Hulk Hogan was a superhero, and that image made him untouchable, for a while. The 1990s brought cracks to Hogan's perfect image. The U.S. government launched investigations into steroids in wrestling, and Hogan found himself caught in the middle. Dr. George Sahorian, a physician tied to the WWF, was accused of distributing steroids, and records linked directly to Hogan showed he had received shipments. When Hogan went on the Arsenio Hall show in 1991 to deny steroid use, his nervous performance only fueled suspicion. By 1994, under oath, Hogan admitted he had been using steroids for over a decade. The revelations damaged his credibility, hurt WWF's reputation, and made sponsors back away. At the same time, Hogan's attempts to transition into Hollywood films failed. Movies like No Holds Barred, Suburban Commando, and Mr. Nanny bombed at the box office. His acting was mocked, and even loyal fans cringed when they saw their hero in embarrassing roles. The once unstoppable force was becoming a punchline, and his personal life was unraveling too. His marriage to Linda was breaking down amid rumors of infidelity and anger fueled by years of steroid abuse. The man who had once symbolized strength and virtue now looked vulnerable and flawed. Even as his WWF career fell apart, Hogan found a second life in World Championship Wrestling, WCW. Eric Bischoff offered him a massive contract that gave him not only millions but also creative control. This meant Hogan could decide how matches ended and who he would lose to, a power unheard of in wrestling. In 1996, Hogan shocked the world by turning heel at Bash at the Beach, joining the villainous New World Order, NWO. Fans were outraged, throwing trash into the ring, but the move revived his career. As Hollywood Hogan, with his black beard and darker persona, he sold millions of shirts and made WCW the hottest wrestling brand of the late 1990s. But his power backstage created chaos. Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall controlled storylines, often refusing to lose matches and holding younger wrestlers back. His contract allowed him to walk out if he didn't like a result, and eventually, this selfishness contributed to WCW's downfall. By 2001, the company was sold to WWF, and Hogan's dominance had left more enemies than allies. His creative control, once his greatest weapon, had turned into the very thing that ended WCW's success. Hogan's public image took even greater damage in the 2000s. His reality show Hogan Knows Best portrayed a happy family, but behind the scenes, everything was falling apart. His son, Nick Hogan, was involved in a 2007 drag racing crash that left his passenger, a young Marine, permanently brain damaged. Nick served jail time, but the incident turned public opinion sharply against the Hogan family, especially when they seemed to act like victims rather than expressing guilt. Around the same time, Linda filed for divorce, taking most of Hogan's fortune and leaving him claiming he was nearly broke. Then came the ultimate scandal. In 2012, a sex tape featuring Hogan with his friend's wife was leaked online. The tape humiliated him, and though he won a massive $140 million lawsuit against Gawker, later settled for $31 million, the damage was done. Even worse, transcripts from the tape revealed Hogan making racist remarks, including using the N-word and making offensive comments about his daughter's dating life. WWE immediately cut ties with him, erasing him from their history, merchandise, and even the Hall of Fame. His daughter Brooke publicly stated she had cut ties with him, citing years of verbal and emotional abuse. By the time of his death, Hogan had never met his grandchildren. For a man who once stood as a hero to millions, his personal downfall was complete. When investigators uncovered Hogan's hidden mansions, the world realized his life was filled with contradictions. He claimed to be broke but secretly held millions in property. He preached vitamins and prayers but relied on steroids and lies. He built an image of a loving family man, yet his marriage and children were shattered by betrayal and scandal. Still, despite the dark truths, Hogan's legacy cannot be erased. He was the face of wrestling during its most explosive growth. He helped turn WWF into a global empire, carried WrestleMania into history, and inspired millions of fans who believed in Hulkamania. His matches, from slamming Andre the Giant to teaming with Mr. T, are forever etched in wrestling history. Yet his story also serves as a warning. Behind the bright lights of fame can hide broken families, addictions, and painful secrets. Hulk Hogan lived larger than life, but he also fell harder than most could imagine. The discovery of his hidden wealth only adds to the mystery of a man who spent decades blurring the line between truth and legend. To many, he will always be the ultimate wrestling superstar. To others, he is a tragic reminder that heroes are often more complicated than they appear. As Hulk Hogan grew older, the years of punishing his body in the wrestling ring began to take a serious toll. Fans often saw him as a superhero, but the truth was that decades of slams, leg drops, and injuries left him in constant pain. Hogan underwent more than a dozen surgeries, including multiple back operations, knee replacements, and hip procedures. In interviews, he admitted that even simple movements became difficult, and pain management became part of his daily life. He once compared his body to a car with 1,000,000 miles, still moving but barely holding together. In later years, rumors surfaced about him battling serious illnesses, including blood cancer, something his wife Jennifer hinted at when she posted cryptic messages online about his healing journey. While Hogan never openly confirmed it, fans speculated that his frail appearances at events were signs of declining health. For a man who once symbolized strength and invincibility, facing frailty was perhaps his greatest challenge. Even so, Hogan tried to keep his larger-than-life image intact, often making public appearances with his trademark bandana, sunglasses, and booming voice, even if his body was failing behind the scenes. One of the most shocking revelations after Hogan's death was the discovery of his hidden fortune. For years, Hogan told the world he was broke, often blaming his divorce settlement for taking nearly everything he had. He claimed Linda walked away with 70% of his assets, millions in cash, and nearly all his properties. Hogan described himself as starting over with little more than his wrestling name. But the discovery of 2 Clearwater mansions worth over $11 million painted a very different picture. These properties were cleverly shielded under trusts and corporate names, making it difficult for anyone to trace them directly back to him. Some believe he hid them not only from his ex-wife but also from creditors and business partners. The mansions symbolized the double life Hogan lived, one in front of the cameras where he was the broken, struggling wrestler, and one in private where he enjoyed the comforts of wealth and luxury. The shocking find left fans questioning how much of Hogan's public story was ever true. Was he a victim of financial ruin, or a master manipulator who always knew how to work an audience, even outside the wrestling ring? The story of Hulk Hogan is one of contradictions. On one hand, he was the man who made professional wrestling mainstream, turning it into a global entertainment empire. He carried Vince McMahon's WWF on his back in the 1980s, became a cultural icon, and inspired millions of fans who believed in the power of Hulkamania. His catchphrases, his poses, and his heroic victories are unforgettable parts of wrestling history. Yet, on the other hand, Hogan's personal life tells a darker story. His steroid use, racist remarks, broken family relationships, and constant scandals tarnished his image beyond repair. Even his closest family members, including his daughter Brooke, distanced themselves from him. To this day, many fans wrestle with how to remember him, as the childhood hero who slammed Andre the Giant, or as the disgraced celebrity caught in betrayal and lies. Perhaps the truth is that Hulk Hogan was both. He was a man who achieved the impossible, rising from a modest background to become one of the most famous athletes in the world. But he was also deeply flawed, and his story serves as a reminder that even legends can fall. The discovery of his hidden mansions was just another twist in a life that was never as simple as it seemed. In the end, Hulk Hogan remains larger than life, a man whose impact on wrestling will never fade, but whose personal choices left scars that time can't heal.